Hello, I hope you are all doing well out there. My name is Scott, and this is my YouTube channel, StaticCampervan. I am sitting down with my morning cup of coffee here, and I thought that this might be a good time for me to get my camera out and to answer a question I got here recently. Just a few days ago, I got what I thought was a really good question, and I thought it deserved a video response instead of me just typing out a little answer. So that's what I'm going to attempt to do here today. And before I forget to tell you, because I always get asked, I am drinking some of Humboldt's finest coffee here. And I've been drinking a lot of this coffee because, one, it's easy to find in my area. It's kind of one of the more local roasters here where I'm at. And two, it's a very good price. And three, it is just really remarkably tasty coffee, and so I enjoy it so much. I've been drinking quite a lot of it. It's going to be a little hard for me to enjoy it right now and to talk at the same time, so this may not have been the perfect time to answer this question, but let me set this down and we'll get on with the question and the answer here. Maybe I'll just take a sip of this first. So the question that was asked of me was, how was I able to downsize all of my belongings to be able to live comfortably out of this minivan? And this is a really good question. Unfortunately, I don't have what I think is a really good answer, but I can just tell you what my experience was, and maybe you can get some information that way that will be helpful to you if you have been considering this yourself. This really all goes back many, many years to when I had a house and a mortgage, and things were changing. I realized that I was not going to be able to hold on to that house for much longer, and the house subject is a whole other video topic that I probably won't ever talk about, and it's probably not necessarily relevant to this situation, other than I knew that I needed to make a change, and I knew that I was going to have to leave that house, and I was going to have to get rid of a lot of stuff that I had. I probably would have been considered a pack rat, and that's the nice way of saying that I was a hoarder. Part of the reason was when I bought the house, it was an old house, and it was not cleaned up when I bought it, so I inherited a lot of junk that I really didn't need or want. But since it was a fixer-upper, I kept all that stuff, thinking that maybe it was going to be useful with the renovation process. Over the years that I lived there, as I tried to fix things up, I acquired more and more junk just in trying to get the house to be livable. The house was never actually livable, but I lived there for a number of years. So since I knew I was going to be leaving the house at some point, I tried to get rid of as much as I possibly could. And a lot of what I had was kind of more considered junk. That's the whole thing about hoarding things. A lot of it really wasn't worth anything. So I did try to sell some things. That didn't work out very well. People really didn't want to pay me anything for what I had. And so I mostly just gave away things, threw out a lot as well. I just wanted to get it out of my possession and out of my hair. And then the time came where I had to leave the house. It happened rather suddenly, and I moved in with some friends. They were very nice to rent me a room in their house, and it was a very small room. So because I didn't have a lot of space, I knew that I was going to have to get rid of a lot more stuff than I was even anticipating. And there was a whirlwind there for a little bit of me trying to just get rid of as much as I could. And I really pared down what I thought that I needed. So I kept a few things for my comfort. I had a nice bed, I had a nice little easy chair and a TV and a cabinet. And that was pretty much all that would fit in that little room that they were renting me. So that's all I was able to keep. I kept a few things on hand, but really it was just clothes, bedding, and a few personal items. Really tried to get everything that I owned to fit into my car at the time. I had a Chrysler PT Cruiser, and I took the back seats out of that car, so the car was a little bit like a smaller minivan in essence. My bed would not fit in it, but pretty much everything else I owned would fit in it. And so that was kind of my idea there going forward. I thought this is a good plan. I need to just get rid of everything that can't fit into my car. And so over the next couple of years, I did try to pare down even more because it was in the back of my mind that I was going to try some sort of van life, although I was still kind of working out the details at that time. By the time I got to the point of buying this van, I was renting a room from another friend of mine, and unfortunately, I kind of took a step backwards with acquiring some things. I lived there with that second friend for, I think, 4 years, and so over that time, kind of lost the plot a little bit, and I acquired a lot more stuff than I really needed to, and then I had to kind of start over with getting rid of all that stuff again. There were a few things that I would have liked to have kept, but I ended up just having a little yard sale and got rid of quite a bit of all of that stuff. So like there was a camping tent I had that might have been useful at some point, but it just didn't fit here in my van. At that point, I had the van built out, and it just didn't fit. And so I just decided what I really need is just the bare essentials. And so I kind of went back to that time of when I moved in with my first set of friends and just thought, look, everything's got to fit into my van. And that was difficult. It was difficult to get to the point of deciding what it was that I wanted to keep and what it was that I needed to get rid of. So for a little while, I actually stored a few things at a friend's house. I had 2 bins and just stored it in their garage. And that really kind of weighed on my mind. That I left that at my friend's house in Southern California, and it was good while I was in Southern California, but then I moved up to the Seattle area, and I stayed up in the Seattle area for 4 years where I wasn't able to get my hands on those bins. And that time of being away from those few things that I had stored at my friend's just impressed upon me the idea that I had way back early on, which is that I just need to keep everything that I own in the van. It doesn't do me any good to have storage someplace else. So I was able to eventually get back to my friend's house in Southern California and get rid of all that stuff. I went through it, and the 4 years of being away from it, there were really only a couple of things that I wanted to keep. There was a knife that I wanted for cooking, and there was a tool that I wanted that would have been useful. I should have had in the van all along. It was an angle grinder, not a very expensive one, but something that I use from time to time. So that I kept, and the rest of it either went into the garbage or went to a donation. It was surprising how little that I kept out of those 2 bins of things. Basically just took up storage in my friend's garage for no reason whatsoever. And it did impress upon me that we really don't need a whole lot in order to be happy. In fact, what I have realized over the years, just over and over again, is that the less I own, the better off I am. In fact, there has been a theme here over the years in that every time I need to downsize, I remember that I am much better off with fewer items. There's not a whole lot we really need to be happy. Things don't bring us happiness. And this is something that I have to relearn quite often. In fact, over the last 7 years plus of living out of this van, I have to go through and just throw out things that I've acquired that I probably don't really need. At the moment, most of the storage here in my van is either clothes, bedding, food, or water. There's not a whole lot of other things that I really own. But there are some things like tools and building supplies that maybe I don't need quite so many of. Now the tools, I think we all need a few sets of tools so that we can be able to work on our vehicle or rebuild something on the van as things break or just need to be refined. So I do have a few hand tools. I don't have a lot. I would actually prefer to have a few more hand tools on board here, but I just don't really like to take up the space for it. So I just get by with the few hand tools that I have. But the one thing that kind of balloons out of control are kind of building supplies. So I usually have some plywood, some angle iron, and lots of wiring and plumbing fittings. These things I keep on hand, and sometimes I think it's just gets to be a little bit too much, and so I have to go through and relearn again that I don't need all this stuff. So I just have to kind of throw it out or give it away when I realize that I am turning into that pack rat again. That way I can kind of just keep the van to what I need so that I can have more food and water storage. Seems like that's more important to me as the years go on. Unfortunately, I can't really tell you what's going to be important for you to keep. I would say that resist the urge to leave things behind at a friend's house, and definitely resist the urge to get a storage facility and pay a storage facility unless you're going to be right near that storage facility. If you're somebody that is not going to travel very far, and say you're just going to live in one city and you're really not going to leave that area, then having a storage facility with some things that you just can't make a decision on might work for you. For me, it does not work. Over the years, I've changed my home base location quite a bit. My home base was in Southern California for a while. It was then in Seattle. Then spent quite a bit of time in San Diego, a whole different area of Southern California that I'm from. Then I spent some months in Arizona. And so trying to decide where I'm going to have a storage space just doesn't make sense for me if I'm going to keep moving around. Nowadays, I'm up in Northern California, and I really like it up here, but who knows, that home base location that I have been using for the last several months may change again. So in my opinion, it's much better to just keep my items to a minimum so that I can keep everything that I have in the van, so that I don't have items that I own spread across the West Coast. Doesn't do me any good to own things if I don't have immediate access to them. And I think that's the only bit of advice I can give to anybody. If you're thinking about downsizing, just really go through and decide what it is you really need. I do understand that there are a number of people that are thinking that they're only going to travel for a short period of time. And so there's things that they want to keep because they know that they're going to get another apartment or a house later on. So if that's your case, of course, you're going to want to have a storage facility of some sort, whether that be something that you rent or from a friend or family member. But I think for those of us that are looking at being in van life for a number of years and don't anticipate any changes that way, it's just really better if you can just get by with as little as possible. And unfortunately, that's the best advice I have to you. It's not a great answer to a good question, but it is the answer that I have now, because it just seems to be the thing that I've had to relearn over and over again over the last 15 or 20 years since I have left my house and have been living either in a van or renting, and so I've been moving around a little bit more. So I hope you found that to be a little bit helpful. Maybe it's not the best answer, but it's my answer, and it's just the way I do things. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. 18th time is the charm, right? Focus, stick to the script. No, that doesn't help either. I think I should drink my coffee before I start doing these videos. Maybe that would help a little bit.